So now we move from patient care to life sciences to understand how the enterprises in the life sciences sector, what are they doing about AI? So we've picked a panel. First of all, Tarun Mathur is the CTO of Indegene, and he's kindly agreed to moderate the panel. We have Jeremy Zhang from Gilead. He brings the lens of the clinical research, drug development to this discussion. We have Michelle Rohrer. She brings the regulatory lens. You know, when I was asking Michelle what she's most passionate about, she said, it takes too long from the time we realize we have a medicine to the time we dose the first patient. I want to cut that time, and I want to see how AI can help us cut that time. So that's her passion. And finally, Priya. Priya is the CEO of AliveCor. So she brings both the enterprise lens as well as what AliveCor is doing to incorporate AI into their products and solutions. So Tarun Mathur will moderate the session. He's right behind me.
I'm really excited to be able to engage with a really distinguished panel of experts. And our topic is, of course, one that's on the top of all of our minds. We've seen it throughout the various sessions these couple of days. My name is Tarun Mathur. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Indegene. And so our company is a 25-year-old organization. We exclusively work in the life sciences space, enterprise life sciences, to be more specific. And we are primarily a services and solutions company, about 6,000-ish employees. 40% of our company are domain experts, so clinicians, pharmacists, other business experts, and we have heavy technology expertise as well. Now, with the Gen AI revolutions happening, we recognized a few years ago this shift in opportunity that's happening with Gen AI. And I can say from the Indegene side, we actually went through a substantial reorganization within the company to really capitalize on that intersection of domain and technology. And so we've rebuilt our teams, we've changed the processes, SDLC, if you're familiar with software development lifecycle, we've actually rebuilt that, thinking about how do I fold in domain experts differently. And we started from prompts to, we heard retrieval augmentation, and today it's all about agents. And we've heard a couple of talks about the power of agents. So we've seen a lot of really amazing opportunities from the services side of the business on what you can do from clinical research through medical and regulatory writing and submission, all the way through commercialization and post-commercialization activities. I'm honored to have such a fantastic panel of experts here who really know this space inside and out, and I want to make sure that we really can get great advantage of their time. So what I'll do is maybe we'll just start off the discussion if each of you then can introduce yourself while we talk about the prompt. But let's start off with really from an entrepreneur and innovator lens. Within your functions in your space, what are some of the big challenges that you're seeing, and what are some of the opportunities? And maybe they're the same thing, right? Opportunities come from challenges, but maybe if we can start from that discussion, and maybe we'll follow the drug life cycle. Maybe Jeremy, I'll start with you and look at from the clinical side of things. Maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and your function and the opportunities and challenges that you're seeing in your role.
Sure, and yeah, thank you so much, Tarun and Avanish, for inviting me. So I lead drug discovery and development from an AI perspective at Gilead. We're a medium-sized pharma of about $27 billion of revenue. And by far, like if you're in this space, you know about Eroom's law, which means that the ROI of drug R&D is trending towards like negative. So AI, I think, is like one of the things that can potentially turn this around. Like there was a blip during COVID where the ROI went up. And there was a famous story that Pfizer claimed that they developed their drug using AI. The reality is, and I think the last speaker said it really well, the AI is quickly not becoming that much of a differentiator. I think even at Gilead, what we're seeing is that the key to providing value, and one of the biggest challenges that we face, especially when I speak to startups in this space like pretty much weekly, I think the key differentiator that I see is the ones that really understand how to address the challenge of integrating the AI into how decision-making actually happens for like these billion-dollar drug development programs are the ones that really get like a second look from us, or even like a partnership or a co-design opportunity. The ones that we tend to skip over are the ones who try to lead too much with, hey, we have like some AI special secret sauce. But since we partner with like OpenAI and Anthropic, we know that that's probably not really the case. especially for a really small and early startup. So any group of entrepreneurs that really understands like how to actually integrate into the clinical workflows and also decision making and development is really the ones that are actually addressing the challenges.
So that's interesting from a business side of the view. This technology enablers are one thing. So we're certainly familiar with Anthropic and OpenAI. So we're seeing powerful technology enablers. Then the change management aspect. So for example, we can go to maybe GPT-4 and through clever prompting and RAG and agents make it do claims, right? Or try to identify new claims. But from a change management and regulatory perspective, are there certain challenges or roadblocks in terms of establishing the credibility or trust that you see from your function along those lines?
Yeah, maybe I can answer it. And actually, I think Michelle probably has a really good follow-up to this. You're absolutely right. I think one of the biggest challenges in a really highly regulated space is our threshold for risk is quite high. So if we see something that's potentially, or actually quite low, like if we see something that even has a chance of impacting patient safety, it's just completely unacceptable to use, which makes it very difficult to trust large language models in a vacuum for any kind of design of a clinical study or patient research angle, making product claims about what drugs can do. Everything is augmentation. And I think that's another approach like I highly recommend people take, is to approach it from an augmentation perspective. And I really think that we will almost never reach a state where a large language model can perfectly prescribe like how to run a program, because there's just too much risk associated with patients. Michelle.
Yeah, actually, Michelle, it's a great segue to you. If you can maybe introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Michelle Rohrer. I come to you from Genentech Roche, where I head up development regulatory. We can talk at length about the challenges of AI use in a large pharma, and there are also an abundant number of opportunities. But if I could take you into my world of regulatory for a minute, two key challenges that I would highlight for you. Did you know that by and large, drugs are developed and reviewed with regulators still in more or less a paper format? Now, it is an electronic paper format, but we have to create large volumes of consolidated PDFs that are linked, of course, electronically. And then the regulatory reviewers at the different countries, and we operate in excess of 150 countries, all review these large electronic dossiers. That's a real reality for us, which means that those dossiers that are electronic paper need to be written. And now, of course, we can leverage generative AI and structured content management to write those dossiers. But the opportunity is really large, in part because of a stark reality. And I want to take you into a world where you all pretend that you are innovators at a biotech or at a large pharma. And you have a drug that you're really excited about that you've been developing. You've been running it through the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials. And you're at the point where you have pivotal trial data. Now let's just pretend that this trial data set is a large data set, maybe upwards of 1,000 patients, maybe 2,000 patients. And you're operating in a disease where there is no drug. There is an unmet medical need. And you're sitting in the room, and we're the review team, and we're sitting in the room when we unblind that data. And the data is very clear. This product works, and it works like gangbusters. Let's just pretend that it saves lives. People live if you get the treatment, or they die if they don't. You know that day that you have a drug. You are probably approximately 6 months away from submitting that data to regulators. And then regulators will review that data for another year. But you know that day you have a drug. This is our inefficient process that Jeremy alluded to. The opportunity is that the day after that unblinding, in the world of using tech from both the innovator side as well as the regulator side, that the next day you have a drug that's available for patients. And we will be there someday, but we're not there today because we are drowning in a paper process that is regulated and expected. So there's a lot of daylight between the opportunity and the challenge, but I do believe that together, because of the inefficiencies of the process, are creating bottlenecks both at the regulator side as well as the sponsor side in terms of having business models that are profitable and can sustain the innovation, that the dissatisfaction is rising to a level where we will see breakthroughs and that there will be more experimentation to lead us to the world of when we know we have a drug, it will be available for patients in a very short time window. And now I want to introduce you to my colleague, Priya, who has a really exciting company with a patient-centered approach. Over to you, Priya.
I could just keep listening to all of you, seriously. Hi, everybody. I'm Priya Abani, CEO of AliveCor. Been here a little bit over 4.5 years. Came from tech, so I came from the dark side. And strongly believe in this intersection of healthcare and tech because I think we all know the challenges that we are facing, including some of what was mentioned right now. And that's not just for drug delivery and drug creation, it's also for devices. It's also for AI. It's the same process that we all go through of creating something that we know is going to change the lives of millions of people, but then waiting for those processes to unfold, and sometimes many, many years go by before actually patients can benefit from it. So a little bit about AliveCor. We're a health tech company. We are devoted to the advancement of remote cardiological care. And just from our journey's point of view, our founder founded the company like about, I think, 11 years back. I'm losing track of time now because years are just flying by. This is the longest I've been in one job, by the way. And I feel like I'm just getting started. But we started off with a single lead ECG device. We went to a 6-lead ECG device. We're now in the process of going through clearance of a 12-lead device that can be used from home. But what has changed in the meantime is we have been doing AI way before it was cool. So we had 3 determinations. For those of you who know something about the heart, we had arrhythmias, so atrial fibrillation, bradycardia, tachycardia. Then we basically looked at another lead and we said we can do more things. So we started doing QT prolongation detection. We started doing sinus rhythms. We are now looking at atrial flutter. And then with the 12 lead, of course, we want to expand that. The reason I'm saying this is clinical AI. And that's the only way it's going to be built. It's not going to be algorithmic anymore. Some things are okay to be algorithmic, but the kinds of data that we can feed to DNNs right now, there is no human possibility for anybody, even like a whole set of human beings, to consume that and train themselves to create that kind of prediction. And that's something we all have to understand. So from my point of view, I see nothing but opportunity. Now, of course, generative AI is the new buzzword. We all like it. We all understand it. But we've been very measured, right? So the first thing we did is we took, I won't say ChatGPT, but we took OpenAI, GPT version something, put a wrapper around it, trained it only to address cardiological needs. So it's right now sitting there as a bot in some of our devices and some of our subscriptions where the patient can go and say, hey, my heart, I'm having palpitations. I drank water today and I'm doing this tomorrow. Is this okay? Or what am I feeling? Do I have a blood pressure issue? Define atrial fibrillation for me. So it's sitting and doing something very simple right now. We're watching how people are using it. Ultimately, we do think this will become a coach because right now in our system, we have human coaches. Right, and we of course have cardiologists, which frankly I don't think will ever be replaced. Hopefully they can use all these tools to augment and just get more efficient and better. But I think that human coach element can probably be augmented with an AI coach, and that's what we are doing right now. So it's a step by step. We're not going wild and saying I'm going to push this out there, in its full form, because I don't know what the definition of the full form is, and because we are already training people to start using devices in the first place to start monitoring themselves, you can't throw like an extreme thing at them just because the tech industry thinks it's cool. And this is from a person who used to work on Alexa, which was all AI, right? So even I understand the measured approach, and then how do you train, but most importantly, win the trust of your customer and the patient step by step to ultimately take them to where, we all think they should be at. So, I mean, it's a very exciting world right now. Hospitals are running at major, really thin margins. We don't have enough resources, enough physicians. There's like one cardiologist per 10,000 population in the United States. We don't have enough nurses, as we all know. We don't have enough administrative staff. I mean, how is this going to work, especially for an aging population? So I think AI is here to stay, and it is going to be a rollout. Some people will be fast, some people will be slow, but the patient has to accept it, the system has to accept it. So that's kind of my impression.
Great. Thanks, Priya. And what I'm hearing is, and a common theme is that the significant opportunities we see we're focused on getting AI into the hands, whether it's patients and caregivers, like you're talking about, Priya, or in the business, how do I get the right medicines to the right patients faster, right? It's obviously good for everybody. At the same time, we're managing risks, and we're trying to figure out how to mitigate that. I'm wondering, within your roles, have there been certain heuristics or approaches that, okay, we're going to be launching Gen AI, we're going to try using it in some way, but here's a measured methodology for how we measure risks so that we can make decisions. And I'll tell you from our perspective, we haven't found a workbench for building Gen AI applications that infuses actual prompt evaluation and testing frameworks at a sophisticated level, right? We've had to build our own at Indegene, but in each of your organizations, as you've been in this Gen AI journey, have you started tackling these problems about folding in issues around responsible, ethical, safety, and risk into your workflow and processes? Maybe you can speak a bit about that. And I know, Michelle, you started off, sorry, Jeremy, you're about to go to the mic, so I'll let you start, Jeremy.
Yeah, I guess we'll follow the order. So you're spot on. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges is, you see a whole bunch of very interesting solutions. Everything from how to pre-screen patients better, lead generation, how to design clinical trials, how to find patients through terabytes of medical claims and EMR. I think the common challenge is, well, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of that solution and as well as the safety? So internally, we've tried to develop adversarial challenges to multiple different types of LLMs. We implement those challenges, whether it's for summarization, extraction, or whatever the vendor is trying to do. But you're right, like if somebody could just come up with something, like almost every single large enterprise would be on board immediately to some sort of like useful framework for adversarial challenges for NLP. It would just see so much usage. In a vacuum, I know not just at Gilead, but I've spoken to colleagues at Genentech and AstraZeneca, for example. Everybody is trying to develop those frameworks due to the risky nature of what we do, right? So,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really, we have AI being embedded throughout the drug development continuum, all the way to drug discovery, to protein engineering or small molecule engineering, to decision support, like how do you make sure that you're making the right bets in your portfolio, to designing the protocols. And here AI is competing with scientists who always want more data. And so designing a protocol that just collects enough data, to doing things that probably you all are quite well aware of, like translation of informed consents. A few years ago, we used to have a person translate into the multiple languages where we run a clinical trial, but today we can do that using a bot. So there's a host of places for AI or large language models, generative AI or technology bots to be used throughout the continuum. And I would say that the interest from the industry is at an all-time high because the ROI generally is declining, and that's due to the increasing costs and complexity of operating in this space.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's being said, but just to add to that, right, ethical AI, so security, privacy, consent, for us in our case, getting data from a vast majority of people who look different from each other, making sure we do that. Like when we train, a DNN on 1 million ECGs, you don't want it all to be from the same zip code from Bay Area, right, or specific. So I think making very deliberate efforts to be inclusive. Sometimes I am certain, like all other things in our country, we're going to go to one extreme and then we'll have to go back to the other extreme, then we'll come back in the middle. But I think every leader, not just the CXOs, but I think actually the head of every discipline has to think about, A, how they can use AI in their own discipline, and then secondly, how can they be more inclusive. And then, of course, the whole matter of security and privacy and, having anonymized data, like this is just baseline in my mind. I think companies that breach that should definitely be reprimanded, right? Because that is just it's a question of putting funding and resources towards making sure that baseline is not breached.
Great. So in the couple of minutes we have remaining, I want to do kind of a quick lightning round here. So if you put yourself in the shoes, let's say you're leading a startup incubator and you have this pile of applicants coming in to get started with, what would be, especially given your experience, your pragmatic reality and your vision, what would be things that would kind of excite you? And are there any things maybe you just kind of throw away saying, okay, these guys are just talking as a PowerPoint, as vaporware potential. But is there anything that you would get excited and jazzed about that you would look for as an incubator lead? And maybe we'll go in order again. Maybe Jeremy.
Sure. Finding patients is tough to enroll into clinical trials. Extremely hard. Like in oncology, you typically only find a patient as a referral. And then, in HIV and viral hepatitis, when we try to find patients who are naive, meaning they've never been treated, it's extremely hard, partially due to our own success, but yeah. So what we've tried to start doing is take the volume of not just US, but global electronic medical records and build massive arrays of predictive models that will predict in advance a potential successful screening or successful diagnosis 6 months to 1 year before a patient is even diagnosed. But that is a massive undertaking, and it is something that I think if a really well-minded group of people could solve that challenge to how do we connect global electronic medical records together and make predictive patient identification a reality, I think it would be fantastic.
Awesome. Yep.
Two items for me that I would look for from entrepreneurs. There's a real desire for clinical research to be embedded into clinical care. Today, these worlds operate connected but separate. The second would be that most clinical trials that are run fail. And it would be wonderful to have an assist of some sort that would help make it so that most clinical trials succeed.
Great.
Yeah. By the way, I wish I run an incubator one day. I have this tendency of wanting to run things versus sitting behind, so that's a problem. So 2 things from my side. I think investing in companies that are aiming from day one to make things affordable and scalable across the globe, I think as part of a mission, even if it takes them decades, is something I always look for. It's something I've always looked at when I join my new companies. And the second thing is any kind of AI that will make my teenagers listen to me, I think would be wonderful. So I would invest in that right now.
Oh, yeah. I think most of us in the room may feel along those lines. I'm totally with you. Thank you so much. I know we're at time. Just as a quick final takeaway, and what I'm hearing as well is that Gen AI opportunities, of course, we're all excited about it. We've heard that statement over and over again. But we've gone beyond individual productivity, right? The days of just saying ChatGPT is a great productivity tool. We're looking at value chain disruption. How can I actually change business processes in a meaningful way, but you prioritize those decisions thinking about risk. In our space, enterprise life sciences, risk comes first, and we'll take a hit on the ROI if we're able to manage those risks. And I think that's a powerful place. I'll end it there. We're at time, but thank you so much. I'm really delighted, and hopefully we can hear more on this topic throughout the rest of the sessions.
Thank you, Tarun.